Hi, I'm Jen. Welcome back to the channel. I make videos about my adventures as a 50-something silver and solo traveler, and sometimes just about my life. I was on the Regal Princess this summer in 2023 and took an excursion at almost every port we arrived at, and that included Edinburgh Castle. So I thought I would put together a highlights reel of my Edinburgh Castle tour. I booked my excursion through Princess instead of using a third party or just winging it on my own. I just wanted to have a guide with me, and the Princess tour and the third party tours were about the same price. The Princess excursion included a tour through Newtown, and it looked like a really good fit for me. Now, I've been to Edinburgh once before, but I was too exhausted to get to the castle at that time. So I tend to overextend myself on the excursions front. So this time I was definitely visiting the castle on my visit to Edinburgh. Queensferry is a tender port for cruise ships, and the cruise ship will anchor off of North Queensferry, and you will take a tender from the ship across the Forth River to a ferry terminal in South Queensferry, just across the way. You have a fabulous view of the Forth Bridge on your way from the ship and also from the ferry terminal, and it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site, so check mark for that. Now, the word firth means estuary, which in turn means the mouth of a large river. And the name of the river is the Forth. So the bridge is a bridge over the estuary or mouth of the Forth River. Whew. The bridge itself was constructed in the late 1800s, and it's a cantilevered railway bridge. It's also been voted Scotland's greatest man-made wonder, and it's the second longest cantilever bridge in the world. Our buses picked us up at the ferry terminal. There were about 3 buses full of cruise passengers going on this very same tour, so it's pretty popular. You may want to book ahead. It took us about, I would say, half an hour to get into Edinburgh, and we went through Newtown on the way. The guide commentated the whole way. It was really a nice, historic little visit, gave us lots of details, and I have to say that Newtown is beautiful. And guess what? Another check mark, because Newtown and Old Town together are also another UNESCO World Heritage Site. Believe it or not, Edinburgh Castle is not. The decision to construct Newtown was made in the 1700s, and it was because wealthier citizens in Edinburgh were gradually moving away from Edinburgh because Old Town was so overpopulated and unsanitary. So the city fathers decided that they would create a new town, and it would be very modern. And it ended up being what is now known as the most complete example of city planning of the Georgian era that still exists today. Our bus dropped us off on a street just below the castle, and we walked up to the castle. It wasn't that bad. We waited for our guide to get our tickets, and then we went through the gates. It took us probably 20 minutes. There was a little bit of a lineup, but not bad. It's a pretty impressive castle once you're there and standing under the gates. And it was meant to be defensive, standing on a volcano or an extinct volcano and everything. So the view from the top is amazing. The 2 men on either side of the entrance, there are statues of 2 men. One is William Wallace, may have heard of him, and the other is Robert the Bruce, also probably heard of him. The saying over the entrance in Latin means "no one assaults me with impunity," which has been translated into the Scottish language as more or less, "no one can harm me without consequence," or "whatever harm comes to me shall be returned." It's also the motto of the most ancient and most noble order of the Thistle, the Scottish Chivalrous Order. The way up to the castle is not incredibly steep, but it is paved with very uneven cobblestones, so you have to watch your footing. It's not the greatest, flattest walking path. definitely. But it leads up to sort of a courtyard at the top, and the Half Moon Battery of cannons looks out over the city and over the river, actually. And it's a super place to get sort of a panoramic view, and you can see for miles. There's even a little cemetery for the dogs of the soldiers if you look over the wall. St. Margaret's Chapel is one of the buildings that you see when you first enter the top, and it's the oldest building in the castle grounds. And it was built around 1130 by King David I in honor of his mother, Margaret, who was a very saintly lady who apparently did all kinds of good works. The National War Museum is also in this little courtyard at the top. I didn't go in there because I wanted to see the Honours of Scotland, and there was a line. The Honours of Scotland are the oldest royal jewels in Britain, and it consists of a scepter, a crown, and a sword. You can't take pictures of them while you're in there, but I found some freebies online, so this is them. They're really impressive in person. I recommend seeing them even if there is a line. The Stone of Destiny is also in the Crown Room. It's also called the Scone Stone or the Stone of Scone, and all British monarchs have sat upon it to be crowned since the 13th century. It's been hidden and stolen and held hostage and has legends and myths galore attached to it. It was transported to London for King Charles' coronation and placed under the coronation chair, so he continued the tradition. The Royal Palace is there as well, and there's a birthing room where King James I was born, but also there's a picture room or a portrait room with portraits of all of the most famous Scottish monarchs, including Mary, Queen of Scots, and her entire line. The Great Hall is also in this square at the top, and it is fully restored to its medieval glory with a huge stone fireplace at one end, suits of armor, swords and crossbows, and just beautiful wall tapestries. But the best part, I thought, of the Great Hall was the ceiling, if you looked up. In the same building as the Honours is a heraldry shop, and they will give you a printout of your Scottish name or ancestor with the coat of arms, their tartan, some clan history, etc., etc. So I got 2 printouts because my family has a lot of Scottish roots, one for my father's side and one for my mother's side. They were, I believe, £25 each, and they will wrap them in a cardboard tube for you so that you can transport them. I thought they was a good deal. It's color. There's also a whiskey and fine food shop and a souvenir shop and a royal shop with items associated with the royal family. On the way back to the ship, or at least back to the ferry terminal to get a tender back to the ship, the bus passes through Old Town and you get a glimpse of Holyrood Castle, which is the king's residence when he's in Edinburgh doing king's business. We didn't get to stop there, and it was just sort of a glimpse, but Old Town is also part of the UNESCO World Heritage designation along with Newtown. So it's worth, a little drive through and the glimpse of Holyrood. But I would definitely go back if possible and get a look at Holyrood, and I believe they do have tours of it. I waited to get back to the ship, and lo and behold, my ride back to the ship was not on a princess tender, but rather on a sightseeing boat that had been pressed into service because there were so many cruisers waiting. Altogether, I found it was a really good experience. I had wanted to go to Edinburgh Castle just for the history of it, but also it's really imposing and it's on a bucket list, I think, for a lot of people. So it was good, and I would advise to take the tour. I was a little bit worried about my knees. I have bad knees, all of the walking and especially going up, it seemed like a very long ways to go up into the castle, but it ended up not being too bad. The cobblestones are definitely uneven, but I saw people with walkers and canes and walking sticks, and they were having no trouble either. So just take your time and watch your footing and you should be fine. In the end, I advise you to get the guided tour. It's a lot more helpful and you get a lot more of history and color of the place, especially Old Town, New Town. And I mean, walking around the castle is very interesting just on its own, but having the guide give you stories really sort of makes the day. Overall, I liked it. I would really advise doing it, and it wasn't too bad on the knees. Hey, if you like this video, if you found it helpful, give me a thumbs up, leave me a comment, subscribe. It'd help me out a lot. Thank you.